Hi everyone, my name is Joseph, and today is a day that will live in infamy apparently. September 4th, 2025, USCIS is now going to become like ICE. ICE-like. What do I mean? This newest memo by the director is saying that they are adding enforcement functions to USCIS. This is going to completely change the public's relationship with USCIS, even though the director has said again and again that they're not going to do that, that it is not meant to cause a chilling effect for the public, and that their main goal is to deter fraud and crime. It just might not be this way. The unintended consequences of this is too drastic, especially given the context of everything that's going on with CBP customs, with ICE itself, with the immigration courts. If USCIS also becomes ICE-like, detaining people, enforcing the actions, giving notice of intent to appear, forcing people to go to immigration court, or expedite removals, it is definitely going to cause a chilling effect, which is what he's saying it is not going to do, or not what he wants to do, but it is going to be the unintended consequences. You can't get around that. Is it a good idea though, right? Good idea, bad idea, the ugly? Let's talk about that, right? Been in this game for an extremely long time, and I can say there are merits to this, right? It is not completely out of left field. It is worth dissecting, but we should talk about exactly what that means. If you are an immigration lawyer, if you are a practitioner, what does that mean for you? If you are an applicant, if you are a client, if you are helping family and friends fill applications, what does that mean for you, right? Let's talk about all of this. Now, again, during these live shows, this first segment, we talk about news. We talk about the impact of immigration decisions on the ground level, not what you see on the major media. Of course, this is such a big news, major media will pick it up, but we're talking about what's happening on the ground. Then the second half of this live show, we're gonna live record a success story. Today's success story is primarily gonna be focused on what happens when what happens when CBP officer confiscates your things. I'm not talking about like canceling your visa or putting you at detention. I'm talking about taking your luggage, confiscating, impounding your car, taking your laptop, taking your electronic devices, and not returning it to you. I'm not even just talking about search. I'm talking about seizure. Because again, this success story involves two separate different clients, all within this past month, where CBP officers took away their electronic devices and we had to go get them back. So I'm going to walk you through exactly what happened, how it happened, and so people can be better informed on what to do if customs officer at the airport or at the port of entry confiscate your things. Now, anytime during this live recording, feel free to ask questions. Galen is right here, right in front of me. He's going to be able to sift through all the different questions. We will be able to answer immigration questions. And if we can't, we'll tell you why we cannot. So today's memo that dropped September 4th, 2025 reads, USCIS to add special agents with new law enforcement authorities. Here is what it's not saying, and I just want to be clear on that, because a lot of people, and I've already seen the different channels blow up, attack this memo, and I think it is wrong to attack it this way. What they're not going to do is make every single USCIS officer, from the info pass, from the field agents, from the service centers, into a police officer. Not every single USCIS officer is going to carry a badge with a gun, be trained to arrest and detain. A lot of attacks are saying that they shouldn't be doing that. They are not trained to do that. They don't want to do that. All true, but that is not what this memo is doing. This memo is saying they're going to hire specific USCIS officers with that authority to be able to investigate fraud and to be able to detain. Think of it more like they're hiring a security officer that is focused on fraud prevention, but with the authority to detain. And it will be a separate officer. So not every single officer who is a USCIS officer will be doing this. And I know a lot of people are saying that they shouldn't, and that's not what they're doing. And it is absolutely correct that USCIS officers don't want to have the police badge or to have the gun and to be detaining people by themselves, right? They're not trained for that. That's not what they signed up for. It's a completely separate skill set, and they are already overwhelmed with too many things to do. It is not in their job duty, okay? So that is not what's happening. And that's important for practitioners and also for clients to know, because the beautiful thing about USCIS in all the years that we've practiced is that they are there helping people. As much as they are supposed to be a vetting agency, as much as they're supposed to be a enforcement agency, they are also a benefit agency. They are granting benefits, work permits, travel permits, green cards, citizenship, benefits that you apply for, that you pay money for, that you apply for, that you compile documents for, and you get. It's a benefit agency, very similar to a DMV, right? You're getting something from the government. And the officers who are there reviewing your application, collecting documents, they're not there like ICE. That's a separate agency. And so the officers there, the beautiful thing about USCIS historically has been, if your application is incorrect, if there's something missing, you go up to an officer and they're kind enough to correct it for you and help you. It might be almost like a bygone era these days when we're looking and we're seeing all the videos pop up and people getting detained and kicked out. But again, historically, these are officers who are reviewing applications, and you have a typo, you have a document that you didn't know. We've seen officers call our office specifically, ask a few things, we answer them, and they just approve the case on the spot. There are good officers, but this memo will cause a chilling effect on that, even though the director is saying they don't intentionally do that. So even though not every single officer is going to have a badge, have a gun, and ready to arrest, the public is now afraid because the situation before, and I've been, in the past 10 plus years, I've always been telling clients, if they have a simple case, they have a small little mistake, you don't necessarily need to hire a law firm or a lawyer to finish it for you. If you already did a good job at the interview, they can correct it on the spot, right? Think about when you approach a librarian. Think about when you go to a Social Security office and you ask a question. Think about when you go to different government agencies, the DMV. Maybe they don't have the best customer service, but you are not afraid that they're going to tackle you and arrest you and take away your life and liberty, right? When you approach a police officer, or vice versa, if a police officer approaches you, that's a very different feeling and different conversation, right? In the past, when you go to InfoPass, when you go to DC, these USCIS officers, a lot of them are there to help you. They review your case, they help you correct, and technically they are still doing that. But because the public will now have a different image of USCIS, now they will see, they are already petrified as it is before this memo went out, just by purely seeing videos of people getting arrested from USCIS officers, right? But they're afraid of ICE, but now they're going to be afraid of USCIS officers. And that's not a good thing. And the reason why that's not a good thing is because in so much of the application process, you want the conversation to be fluid. The officers are trained to ask questions, to interview, to swear in, and it's not supposed to be an interrogation. But this memo makes it into a battle, makes it into an interrogation. And now the clients might be even more concerned. And that shackles USCIS more than it helps. And I know that's not the intent, right? The intent is they're going to hire and deputize officers who are in the building who are going to review cases that are highly fraudulent, and they will coordinate with ICE and detain and arrest people, and also specifically, they say attorneys, that they deem to be completely fraudulent. Now, here's a crazy thing. I know almost every single USCIS officer will have a war story, right? And if asked, are there any cases that you would just immediately refer for detention? Almost all of them will say yes. And you might conclude, oh my goodness, every single officer has a story, that means there's tons of fraud rampant everywhere. But guess what? A lot of those stories are the same story, right? And I know this because at USCIS, at HELA conferences, there was one day where there's two officers that I spoke to on separate occasions that told me the exact same story. They must have some sort of channel going where they share war stories to each other. And of course they would. It's exciting, it's fun, it's interesting, but they share stories about it with each other. They take a look at it with each other. And sometimes it's the same story that gets spread around. Now everybody has like, oh yeah, that case is fraudulent, I will refer that one. But that doesn't mean on their own docket, every single person every single day has 1 out of the 10 that is for sure fraudulent. You see what I'm saying? So just because every single USCIS officer knows that there are extreme cases that are extremely bad that they would totally refer to ICE doesn't necessarily mean that there are tons of fraud everywhere. It could be just a few different cases. And I might add, USCIS officers are trained to adjudicate cases by the standard of proof of more likely than not. It's a 50-50 test. They look at a case, is it 50% approvable or is it not approvable? If it's approvable, they approve it. If it's more likely than not that it's not approvable, they might get a request for evidence, or they might give a notice of intent to deny, or they might deny it. But fraud is not that 50 line. It's like 2%. It's like there is so many convincing evidence that this case is wrong, that this person should be detained, that we should deport this individual. And of course, USCIS officers come across these cases more than anybody else, more than CBP, more than the consulate, more than ICE. Who would know these cases the most? It would be USCIS officers. So it makes sense that if they're reviewing cases and they see this outlier, that they would refer those cases over to ICE. And that's what they have been doing, okay? That's what they have been doing before this memo, right? They deny a case, they're like, this case is so bad, they refer it over to ICE. And now ICE is supposed to go pick up the individual and put them in deportation. Because again, if the 45 case has been denied, they lose that privilege or any sort of protection, and now ICE has the authority to pick them up. But according to this memo, and according to all the publicity around this memo, they've been saying, well, ICE is too busy. They're supposed to be combating international crimes and transatlantic problems. And CBP, Customs, they have too many other things that they are working with. They work with Homeland Security investigation, that they work with FBI and Interpol and agriculture. They don't have time to focus on immigration. So who better and to do it than USCIS officers? That's fair. But again, in the past, they have already been doing this. An alternative solution to this memo would have been, okay, well, why don't we just improve ICE's capacity? They are already trained, they're already deputized, they're already trained to give notice of intent to appear, to revoke people's statuses, to detain them, to house them. Housing is actually not a great term considering the conditions in which people are living in, but they're supposed to already put them in detention centers. Well, what are they supposed to do now, right? So if ICE was just empowered to have a separate personnel staffing to work with USCIS, and a lot of these ICE officers are already in the same field office as USCIS, you know? So if you're gonna hire people, why don't you hire under ICE? Why are you hiring under USCIS? It is not the best look for USCIS. Because again, officers are there. A lot of them are benefit agency officers. They love doing their job. They love giving people benefits. And so now the public, when they go in, it's as if it's that interrogation room you see in the movies where there's that glass and there's another officer on the other side just peeking in and just investigating whether or not you could be detained or not, right? And that is extremely scary. What I am telling my clients who have interviews is to know that this memo and what USCIS is trying to do is to catch fraud. And fraud is not the same as misrepresentation, And it's not the same as material misrepresentation. And it is not the same as a deportable offense. And it is not the same as a typo or a mistake or a paperwork error. And I try to give them this context as much as I can, where you are applying for a benefit, you qualify for everything. Your I-130 is approved, your I-140 is approved, you are a good citizen, you have good moral character, your intent is clear, you don't have any baggage, you have a lot of good equities when you're going into these interviews, whether it's an adjustment of status interview, whether it is a marriage interview, whether it is a removal of condition interview, whether it is a citizenship interview. Prepare your case well. And if there are small mistakes, those are okay. This memo, everything else that USCIS is doing, again, that person that they're hiring that have the power to detain people, it's still up to each individual USCIS officers to adjudicate each case before they give it to their supervisor, and then they give it to the director, and all three sort of sign off on it before they give it to this individual to detain. That is how it is most likely going to work. It is not, USCIS most likely will not, every case that they want to deny, immediately give it to this officer to detain and arrest. That will break down the system. They won't hire enough people to do this. And that's just not how the system have worked in the past. And it was working, right? As crazy as it is, the legal immigration system, right? Again, most people who are filing with USCIS are all people who have entered the country legally. Even if they're not legal, they have found a legal way to adjust their status. And so they are in the system. They are registered. You know where they are. You know their background. You know whether or not they're a threat to society. So for most service centers, most field offices, if they do encounter somebody who they are just absolutely for sure it's part of a criminal network, it is fraud, there's a scheme going on, there's all these links, they have many people who have investigated this said individual, and their 45 is denied, they lose their protection, now they get arrested and they put in ICE proceeding. And even being put in ICE proceeding, it is still not absolutely the end of the road, right? It just means that they are in ICE proceeding now. Now, ICE registers them. ICE maybe will have to decide whether or not this person can get a bond or not. And if they can get a bond, they're out. If they can't get a bond, they're in immigration court. And now whether or not they qualify for 42A or 42B cancellation or removal, right? So it's basically expediting the next process. Before this memo, USCIS will just like alert ICE, oh, there's this individual that got their case denied. You may want to go after them. Maybe that's the end of the story. But now there are specific individuals within USCIS that have this power. Will this deter criminal organizations? Will this deter massive fraud? And if it does deter criminal organizations and massive fraud, will it reduce the backlog and allow other people to get things faster and benefit the country? Most likely. And that is a good thing. So that's why a lot of people who are going to attack this memo and say every USCIS officer is going to be deputized and it's going to really harm the immigration system, that's not exactly true, right? The optics of it matters almost just as much as the actual play of it. And this administration, if there's anything that they are extremely good at, it's optics. And optics does have an actual real-world impact. But the unintended consequence of this optics is fear, and that is what we have to deal with. So if you are an applicant, if you are applying for any sort of benefits and you're going to see a USCIS officer, that is what I want you to know. This memo is most likely not targeting your case. Still prepare well, still practice the interview. There are still good officers, and help explain everything. Again, fraud is not the same as misrepresentation, not the same as material misrepresentation, not the same as a deportable offense, not the same as a typo, right? I've just done so many of these consultations where somebody says, I filled out the application incorrectly, now I'm going to get removed, and now I'm going to lose my green card, and I'm going to lose everything. And I'm like, well, what did you not say? I didn't enter a particular address, or I didn't, enter all the dates that I in and out of the country because I don't remember it. And there's no way for me to find out. Small typos is not the fraud that will cause your green card to be revoked. These officers, at least now, have all still been trained more as a benefit agency in a sense of trying to approve cases. If you are a practitioner, if you're a law firm, if you're a nonprofit, and you have cases that are very borderline, right? Very difficult. And you can see good officers and bad officers adjudicating these cases differently. If you are a practitioner seeing these type of cases, whether or not they should go to the interview or not, you might have to double or triple down, right? If before you prepare, a 10-page brief with 100-page documents to prove it is not fraud, that they're in lawful status, maybe you have to double or triple that. And now maybe you have to coach the family a little bit more on the risks and the adversities. And if you're a nonprofit that you don't have the bandwidth to do that, maybe you have to let them know and read this memo and let them know that they might actually need real representation because their case is actually that complicated, right? Nonprofits in the past, a lot of it is filling out applications, giving basic guidelines, and then sending them to USCIS officers to do the rest of the work. And that system worked great until nonprofits have seen their funding cut and officers are now highly transformed to an enforcement arm. And so the old system, the old nonprofit USCIS duo to help the masses might just not work anymore, especially if your case is complicated, right? So if you're a practitioner, so many of our cases, right? The public just doesn't understand, right? There are transactional attorneys, and then there are attorneys who go to the interview, and then there's attorneys that go litigate in federal courts, all very separate skill sets, right? And so we do a really good job in preparing cases and filing it. That's our strength. If we have to do an interview, rarely do we focus on it. But if there are complicated cases, well, of course we do it, right? But again, in the past 10 plus years, we don't focus on the interview because it wasn't necessary. The attorneys can't even speak. They sit behind the client at these interviews. But in the future, that is going to become more and more needed as the clients get more and more scared and as these officers are under a higher imperative to enforce immigration law. And so that's sort of the state of play that we're in. I hope this kind of analysis is helpful. And as it unfolds, if there's anything that comes up, I'll definitely do another news segment. So that's the news that I want to share with everybody today. I'll take some more questions before we jump into the success story where CBP officers have been confiscating people's electronic devices.
Is AP still safe to go out? I have a valid AP, but I'm scared.
Got it. Yes, I do think it is safe to still go out because a lot of customs officers that we see on a daily basis, they still let people in, right? So it is not a widespread situation where customs officers reject people from re-entering with AP. Are there situations where you cannot come in? Absolutely. But it's a case-by-case basis. On a majority as a whole, generally speaking, with advanced parole, it is still safe to enter.
My I-130 was approved last month for marriage. I'm now doing the 485. Do you think there will be another interview?
We have seen so many interviews waived that I think there's a high chance you won't have another interview, but it is also extremely rare that you have an I-130 interview. So if it's an unusual situation, they might call you in for a second interview. But if it's not an unusual situation and everything already checks out, they don't want to waste their time, right? So again, just to be clear, we've seen so many I-130, 45 cases filed with no interview.
We applied to naturalization, but my green card was expired for a month. Is this going to be a problem?
No, because a green card, even though it's expired, doesn't mean you lose your lawful permanent resident status. The old green cards doesn't even have an expiration date. So unlike a library card, unlike a lot of things, when things expire, it doesn't mean you suddenly lose your status.
Can I expedite my EAD under the K-1 fiancé AOS biometric done 4 months ago?
The chance of that succeeding is probably less than 0.1%. Any sort of expedite, advanced paroles that I've seen, lawful, unlawful, good reason, not good reason, almost have all been denied. But again, that's just my experience.
My husband and I don't live together because I'm in college, my baby is in school. Is that bad? We see each other weekly, though.
If it's an immigration question, right, I could comment on it. If it's not an immigration question, like everybody has their own different marriages, that is obviously a red flag. So you better have a good explanation.
If my marriage only lasted for 9 months, the green card was issued after 8 months of marriage.
If you want to get the 10-year green card now because your marriage was so short, at the interview, you're going to really have a hard time explaining why your marriage was so short and why it was real. It's not impossible. We've definitely done it before. We made videos on it on YouTube. Please go check it out. But just know it's an extremely uphill battle. Gather all the evidence you can, family and friends who can attest that your marriage is real and why their marriage failed.
If HR 875 passes, will it be retroactive, and will it affect pending N-400 applications?
The crazy thing about immigration law is that it very might be retroactive, meaning the DUI 5 years ago, 10 years ago, suddenly you are fine now, but suddenly you're not okay anymore.
What are the chances of being successful with OMV 1125 if someone came in at 17?
I have no idea. Sorry.
Is it easy to get a waiver? Oh, in case of divorce. So for the marriage, 9 months, got the green card. Is a waiver easy in that case?
It is not easy. What you're looking at is a 751 waiver. So all you have to do is just look up 751W waiver on our YouTube channel, and you could see maybe 30, 40 videos in all complicated, difficult cases. And you could I walk through every single one, how we did it, what you do, what you should do. Definitely not easy.
Is there an interview for I-751, and how long does that process take?
Sometimes it could take 3 to 4 years after you file the case, because time is a good indicator and a good judge of your case, according to USCIS. There might be an investigation at your home or your office, and then there will likely be an interview, especially if it's a 751 waiver.
Will officers start asking about community service and citizenship interviews?
They will not proactively because it is not on the form, and they already have way too much to ask on the form. But, and a general rule, if there's anything that makes you not have good moral character, a citation, a criminal arrest, a conviction, even if it's dismissed, if you have those things, then now the officer has to really weigh, do you have good moral character? And if you have a minus a couple points, you should bring it up yourself to talk about the community service.
I'm a permanent resident. Can I travel to Mexico even though I just got a speeding ticket misdemeanor? It's taken care of now.
Misdemeanor is probably not a deportable offense. It is probably not a crime of moral turpitude. A speeding ticket definitely is not a crime of moral turpitude. However, you definitely want to double check that. Take your conviction, take your court minutes, plug it into ChatGPT, and let them analyze it for you. That way you don't have to hire a immigration lawyer to analyze it, but most likely it is not.
How did you talk to the CBP officer regarding that 19-year-old that was in NYU but was abroad for 9 years?
How did I talk to the officer? As in, what did I say to the officer?
Probably like logistically, how did you actually?
Yeah, so we prepared the case. I don't remember exactly how long, more than 3-4 months. We prepared the case, and I went down, talked to the officer, explained this is the situation. They've been out, wants to come in school. If I remember correctly, if it's an NYU case, the parents abandoned the green card already. The parents didn't come with the kid. So I was like, the kid wants to come back. The parents didn't. Please, can they come in? It's a crazy case, I understand, but they're still under 18. They couldn't make their own decision. There's a case law that supports this. It was a long shot. Officer said, I'll interview them, bring them.
If you had status, you filed for asylum prior to expiration, can I now get F1 without leaving?
Can you say your question again?
Yeah, you had status, they filed for asylum before the status expired. So asylum,
right.
can they get F1 without leaving U.S.?
Most likely not, because your status is probably expired. But specifically, we don't do asylum cases. So I really can't advise on things that somewhat touches asylum. But based on my general understanding of immigration law, if you went from a non-immigrant status to asylum pending case and you want to go back to non-immigrant, you probably cannot.
If an O1 holder files for the NIW, is there a solution for their child aging out before the priority date?
No.
What if I got divorced?
Let me clear. So O1 file for NIW. Maybe NIW is approved. Maybe the EB2 priority date is extremely long and the child is about to age out. What can you do? Well, upgrade to an EB1A, right? We did that for this Indian client. It's also on our YouTube channel. It was like last couple, like month in order to do it. And then we did it within like a week. And then the whole family got a green card, right? So if you're O1 approved, if your EB2 NIW is approved, you're just like a couple steps away from an EB1A application, right? So if you can upgrade to an EB1A, then the priority date is suddenly EB1, not EB2, right? And you can recapture your original EB2 NIW case, right? So like, for example, the client that we did, they had an EB2 that was approved years ago, and so we did an EB1 and we were able to use a priority date from the EB2. That's how you can, use your CSPA. Yeah.
Can I call you? I need help. I'm in Jamaica.
You can schedule a consultation on our website. Just take a look at it. It's pretty simple. You just book the appointment. You could say specifically if you want, like, please, I only want to talk to Joseph, then we'll schedule it accordingly. But my time is pretty packed until, a couple weeks later. So if it's an urgent question, there's so many different attorneys here who can help you. But if you only want to speak with me, just put that in the notation. Make the payment with credit card, and bam, your interview is scheduled.
What if I got married, divorced, but I already filed the I-130? Can I still marry someone else while that's pending?
If you're already divorced, you can of course get married again. If you haven't been divorced, that would be polygamy. That's a crime. Your I-130 will likely get denied if it's petitioned by your previous spouse. So what you should do is probably withdraw it. But the I-130 is petitioned by your ex-spouse, so only they can withdraw it, not you. If you file the 45, you can withdraw that 45. Multiple people can file I-130s and I-140s for you, so it doesn't matter. So yes, the answer is if you got divorced, you can get remarried and you can file a new I-130. However, because now your case is more complicated, you will have to explain why your marriage is real, given your past.
Should we print and sign the NVC form that was sent by email, or how should we actually sign that form?
Great question. I'm ashamed I can't answer because that's very much a paralegal question, and I haven't really actually looked at the NVC application in probably 10 years. So, my team does a great job. You really should book a consultation with them.
How long does it take to get an answer after the 485?
I'm assuming you mean you filed the 45. At what point do you get your green card, right? Well, or if you mean by answer, usually file 45 within 2-3 weeks, you get a receipt notice. Usually within a month, you get a biometrics appointment, or 2 months at the most, biometrics appointment. And then if you filed for a work permit or travel permit, it comes within maybe 6 months. And then if you have an interview, it's within 9 months. And then after that, a green card comes, within a year time. That's generally on average. Hopefully that helps.
So you suggested AI. If ChatGPT says I have a strong EB1 case, how accurate is that actually?
Use another chatbot to confirm, and also ask it what are the weak points and how can it improve, right? So there's no penalty to filing a case, right? So you just make it the best possible.
Oh, is it safe to travel on a 2-year green card?
Yes. All things considered, yes. Don't leave for too long, but, that is part of a privilege.
I have an interview for a marriage, I-130/485. I have a court in 2027. Will that work? I'm parole 212D5A.
I recommend doing a consultation, not with us, on this issue. If you have a removal order, if you have a court date, and you want to travel, it is extremely complicated, right? When the customs officer will get extremely confused. So definitely prepare well, but we don't really do that much removal proceedings.
As my first job as a green card holder, I accidentally sold cigarettes to a minor. Will this now affect my citizenship?
Yes, if they find out.
I took my fiancé, and I suffer from depression, and he was the one taking me to my appointments. What should I do now? Maybe they took, ICE took my fiancé.
Oh, ICE took your fiancé, and
The presumably U.S. citizen relied on the fiancé.
I see. If you have a good equitable claim, he could try to contact ICE to bail him out. If they don't allow you to, he's under mandatory detention, then you really have to find another solution.
I have an I-130 approved and a 601A pending, but my case from 15 years ago got reopened.
I'm assuming your case, meaning prior removal proceeding, and now you're in immigration court. So if that has been reopened, I-130 will not protect you. ICE could pick you up. 601 is not a protection. Even if 601 is approved, it is not a full protection. So I would recommend preparing your 485 as fast as you can. And when you have the immigration hearing, there is that potential where ICE might pick you up and you might have to apply for a bond.
My travel document, I-131, has been pending for almost a year now. Is there anything you could do to help with that?
Can you repeat the question?
I-131 has been pending for almost a year.
Oh.
Can you do anything to help?
I recommend, this chance of success is low, but again, at least these are all the steps. Take a look at expedite I-131 or expedite advanced parole or expedite reentry permit on our YouTube page. And I did a couple videos that talks at length about every single thing you can do. So just follow that video instruction and hopefully you can get it done.
I got married, didn't file. We still kept seeing each other. Now we're planning on getting married again. Is that okay?
Yes. Document it and explain why, right? And so we did a case where somebody got married and they got divorced and then they got remarried again. So you could just have to really explain that to the officer and that they don't see anything as fraudulent.
As a military member?
Yes. Contact your, I believe they call it ROC, right? But contact your agency and they should be able to help you out.
Okay, I'm on a 5-year conditional green card. My husband and I filed Chapter 13. Will this affect my citizenship application?
Yes. Even though the USCIS memo on good moral character didn't mention anything about Chapter 13 or Chapter 11, right? However, they did say whether or not you have filed your taxes and whether you're employed. They definitely look at public charge. They definitely look at whether or not you are contributing to society in a financial capacity. So if you file the Chapter 13, if you file the Chapter 11, really be prepared to explain that. They're not experts on that kind of filings, but use other things to also support your good moral character.
Like they filed taxes, they always file taxes.
Sure, but so filing taxes is fine, but do you have a tax lien? How much back taxes do you owe? Do you owe the government anything? Who are the creditors? Why did you file for, Chapter 13? Where are you living now? Are you going to be a public debt to society? Do you take advantage of Medicaid and Medi-Cal and all sorts of other programs that the United States offers, right? So they're going to look at a lot of things. And this filing is just something that triggers it, but you really want to analyze everything else, right? And it doesn't mean you absolutely won't be able to get a green card. It just means that's a factor now that USCIS is now looking at and scrutinizing over.
I applied for N400 2 months ago. I have a 2-year-old baby. How soon can I apply for her?
Look into N600, right? Because if you become a citizen, your child could become a citizen as well, right?
Okay, so a couple more updates. No owed taxes. U.S. citizen children are on Medicaid, but not the applicant.
Okay. So good for you, right? But again, it's something that will trigger analysis. That's why you just want to prepare more things, right? Everything that's in your favor, prepare well to explain.
Conditional 2-year, and I'm now divorced. I'm in therapy. I was betrayed. Can I still get a 10-year green card?
Yes, absolutely. We've done tons of these type of cases. And so we have so many stories that are almost the exact same situation. So go ahead and check it out on our YouTube videos. They're all, I want to say, pretty in-depth. Some people say juicy. Some people say entertaining. My goal wasn't to make it juicy or entertaining. My goal was to kind of share, this is a very complicated legal problem. What are some creative solutions? How do we prepare? So go ahead and check it out. I think it might be helpful.
How much more evidence do you need in an EB1A than in an O1?
How much more? We usually just do a multiple of 3. So if you submitted 500 pages, be prepared to submit 1,500, but higher quality, right? If you submitted 3 letter recs, get prepared to submit 9, right? Be more in depth in every single way, at least 3 layers.
How can I reach out to you for a consultation?
Check out our website. It is one of the fastest ways and most efficient ways that we've designed so far. So you could just look at my calendar, you can book it. Not my calendar, right? So you just have to look at the calendar and just book a time slot. And if you really only want to speak with me, then put that in the calendar. But again, we have a lot of really great attorneys here.
In relating to taxes and evidence of marriage, my wife is out of the country, so we can't file jointly.
That doesn't make sense. CPAs can file for people all the time.
Okay, I added the word because.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, they didn't file jointly. Wife is out of the country.
All right, that's fine. Yep.
Do you just need other evidence, basically?
Yeah.
More than 3 years waiting for the 730 decision. My spouse is currently in the U.S.
What's the question?
They more than 3 years waiting for the 730 decision, and the spouse is currently in the U.S.
Okay. I have no idea what a 730 decision means. Sorry.
Maybe I-130?
Oh, yeah. I-130. But what's the question? They've been waiting for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
They're in the U.S. Okay. Maybe get a senator involved and ask them to check, because 3 years seems slightly long. 2 years is maybe average. I'm assuming you're a green card holder, because if you're a U.S. citizen, that's way too long, right?
Can I naturalize with a dismissed misdemeanor?
Yes, absolutely. We've done it. We've seen it. Totally doable. Now it's harder because of the good moral character. So you have to explain what happened with the misdemeanor, how long ago it happened, what have you done since then, and everything else in your life that proves that you have a good moral character, right?
Okay, the last question we take before the success story. I left the country for 4 years now. My green card expired last year. My daughter is American, probably a U.S. citizen.
Great. It's complicated, but still possible. Your daughter, prepare everything well, go to the border, explain it to the officer, present your documents, how the U.S. is your home, why leaving the U.S. for 4 years was temporary, beyond your control, and it was limited in duration and time, and why now your future is here. Answer those 3 questions well, provide lots of documents to support it, be clear, be able to answer the officer's questions, and have your daughter be able to be with you and explain as well, and be okay with being put into proceedings. As in, CBP will have to say, okay, well, I'm going to give you an NTA, but you can prove it to an immigration judge, and then you can file a new I-130 at 45. Be prepared for that as a plan B. That's what we have done in the past. That's what we always do. That's the game plan. Now we just go ahead and spend 3-4 months, prepare it, we go try it, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean you have to hire us. You could still do everything yourself as well. Check out our green card holder overseas playlist on our YouTube channel. We have probably over 80 videos that are almost same situation as this. Some people have left the US for 6 years, 9 years, 13 years is the craziest one. A lot of people have their green card expired. Always the same structure. Why is the US your home? Why have you been out? What are the documents to prove it? Do you have an alternative way to get a green card again? How do you explain it to the officer? and you execute that. And we have been very successful, and hopefully you can still come in the country as well.
Yeah, can I travel on a pending 751?
If your green card is not expired yet, if you got the pending receipt notice and it extends your green card, or you have a 551 stamp, then the answer is yes. But we've seen a client, which is extremely unfortunate, left the country, and then while gone, 751 got denied. Well, we try to get them back in. We try to go to customs. We try to say, hey, look, we're going to do a motion to reopen on the 751. It was denied incorrectly. The officer said no. They have no valid entry documents. But miraculously, we filed a motion to reopen, and then with a motion to reopen, we were able to get the client in. But that was several years ago when humanitarian parole was a thing. Now humanitarian parole has been canceled. I don't suspect if your conditional green card application had been denied, even if motion to reopen is pending, a custom officer will let you in.
I had a petty offense case last year, dismissed, it's been erased, but will that affect my citizenship?
Yes. Being dismissed, they don't care. Being expunged, they don't care. Being dropped, they don't care. The fact that you have an arrest record, the fact that you have a court record, they will want to know. And that is definitely a minus couple points. Doesn't mean you will get your citizenship. It just means you need to go above and beyond to prove good moral character.
I have a 2-year conditional green card. I will apply I-175 removal. Do you think that's hard now?
It is hard. It's getting harder, especially now with USCIS having the ability to arrest people and detain people. If they suspect that to be fraudulent, you're even under a greater threat. So definitely go above and beyond and prove your case is real.
My friend's on a payment plan for taxes from 7 to 8 years ago. Their 751 is 4 years overdue. They applied for citizenship. Will payment plan affect that?
Yes, because USCIS's new memo cares about your financial ability to judge whether or not you're a good person or not. Is it right? Is it fair? Is it moral? Is it just? That's a separate question. Is it what they're doing? Yes.
Can a naturalized citizen be denied entry if they've been out of the country for 7 years?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, can a naturalized citizen re-enter the country if they've been abroad for 7 years?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if you're a naturalized citizen with a U.S. passport, yeah. I've seen people leave for 10, 15 years and come back without a problem.
I'm married to a U.S. citizen. They never gave me money for anything. Can I get a U visa?
You should consult an expert U visa specialist on this. We don't do enough U visas to be able to answer that question.
My fiancé is detained. We can't get him out on bond. ICE is now asking for his passport. Should I give it to them?
It's a good sign that they want to just deport them so they go back to their home country so he doesn't have to be detained, right, further. So if that is something that you guys can handle, if that's something that's good, and you can apply for a waiver, you guys could be together again, then you should give them the passport. If not, then he might be detained indefinitely, and that's probably not very healthy.
Can I renew a green card with a minor DWI non-aggravated?
Most likely, yes. If the new law passes, maybe not.
Okay, and our last question. That is our plan for giving them the passport. I'm just worried, but thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, last question. A parent applied for asylum, but while it was pending, she got divorced and asylum was approved. Can she remarry the same person?
I don't know. I really don't know. Well, and so first, we don't do asylum cases, so I don't know that process. But if I'm doing an analogy, right, somebody who's in the process of 45 getting a green card, and you were a dependent spouse, and then you got divorced, and then they got the green card, and then you want to remarry and go through the process and do a following to join and get the green card, that might be difficult. Maybe, so yeah, I think it's just better to talk with somebody who does a lot of asylum cases. Today's story is about customs officer confiscating people's electronic devices, luggage, car, impounding their items. And this happens more than you know. At least just in the past couple months, we've seen 2 cases where this have happened. One was a Chinese national and one is a French national. Separate companies, separate cases, but they are, and they're not linked in any way, shape, or form that I can possibly connect, other than the fact that it happened at the airport. Customs officers say we have to confiscate everything, and then the clients have to return home. They contacted us and said, what do we do? This is really important. My stuff has been gone for months now. I have no notice. How do I get it back? One of these individuals, the French national, they work for a major US company. I want to say, if I said the name, you would for sure know it. In fact, probably a lot of our retirement plans are tied to this company's stock. Huge company on the S&P 500. Their stuff got taken away. What do? The general counsel for this company and their immigration attorney for this company contacted us and say, please, we need to get this thing back. How do we go about it, right? We have, we do so much work with CBP. What do we do? So the first thing is, well, we got the seizure notice. We contacted the CBP officer. Just so you know, CBP officers, they're not really there to know why they're taking the stuff. They're under another direction. They're working with HSI, the Homeland Security Investigator, and they are there for whatever reason to protect national security. And so they are alerted about this individual coming in. So they told CBP, they put it in the system, this individual take their their devices. So CBP, brings the client into secondary, investigates them, takes the documents, and then they return to their home country. And they give the documents over to HSI. So what we did was we contacted CBP. We found out the information of who to contact with HSI. And of course, CBP first contacts HSI, see if this was still an issue, which agent is involved, can they release the information? They said, okay. We contacted HSI agent. HSI agent reviewed the case and said, okay, this is fine. We already got everything we need. We can return the devices to you. And we scheduled a meeting point. Then they dropped it off. We took it and we FedExed it back to France. We FedExed it back to China. For these 2 separate cases, exact same scenario. It's always HSI who alerted CBP officer to take the documents and to take the electronic different devices. But this happens also with money. This also happens with food, with agriculture, and with cars too, right? If the car was declared as stolen and they capture it and they see it and there's a warrant, there's some sort of thing, of course they impound it, right? But the thing about this whole process is that it was so complicated and so convoluted that it just stressed the heck out of everybody involved and stressed the client out because they've been waiting for months. Their personal phone and laptop was taken, okay? Phone and laptop with no explanation. Until this day, we still didn't get an explanation as to why HSI put a ding on these individuals. Never mind how they're going to get a new visa, right? Because again, their visas were canceled. They have to go back to the consulate. They have to apply for a new work visa to come back in. So I don't know how they're going to deal that, right? They have a separate immigration law office helping with everything. We were just in charge of trying to get the documents back, right? The devices back. So again, CBP doesn't have the answer. And if you ask them, they don't know. They know what they're supposed to investigate for immigration purposes. And again, both of these clients did not do anything wrong with CBP. They're here, they're on vacation, they got their plane ticket, they're going to leave, they're not going to overstay, they're not illegal. But for some reason, Homeland Security investigators put a ding on both of these individuals separately, and their stuff was taken, and 2 separate law offices contacted us to deal with these cases. And we went and we got it back and we sent it back to the clients. But that's the process. Now, if it was just money, unless it's a lot of it, most of the time, the effort to try to get it back is not worth it. If it's things that are disposable, perishable, probably not worth it. Like, if you have like beef jerky, okay, we'll just give it up, just trash it, right? But in this case, it's sensitive technological information. That's why the general counsel of this major tech company was involved to find out exactly what happened and how to get it back, right? Because again, a lot of trade secrets and sensitive information are on those devices. So But that is the process. So if anybody have their stuff taken away by customs, don't freak out over the customs officer. They get extremely annoyed. We went very politely. Hey, we got the seizure notice. The person's already left. It's been a couple months. Can we find out the process? How do we get it back? The officer says, okay, we have good communication. Oh, by the way, this whole process took less than a month. The client already waited for like 2 months, but since we were contacted, we spent probably less than a month, a couple of weeks here and there, contact the CBP officer and then get in touch with the HSI officer and then meet with the HSI officer. Got it, and then we FedEx it back almost the same day. It's just convoluted. There's not a lot of things online. And just again and again, we had to keep on explaining to all parties, to the immigration agency, to the company general counsel, to the client, that this is not corruption, this is not bribery, this is not bad customer service, this is not criminal, that the U.S. immigration system, this is just what it is. And the CBP officer it's not like a third world country. In order for them to seize a document, they have to put it in their system. And if they are accepting bribes and if they're accepting, any sort of things that's improper, they probably get fired. It's a criminal jail time. They will not put their job on the line. It is extremely hard to go through the background check to be trained to be a CBP officer. They don't care about that iPhone, the iPhone 14 that they took, okay? They're not working for a spy agency and selling trade secrets. It is strictly through another agency, HSI, right? And so just so you guys know, don't put the heat on the customs officer. I know other third world countries, some closer than others, have that reputation where customs officers flip through the bags and say they're going to confiscate a couple things, but if you give them a couple $100, they'll let you off easy. That is not the United States. That is not, in my experience, what customs officers do in the United States, at least in all the times that I've worked with them. And so don't come to us and say, we'll give them a couple $100, can we get the iPhone back? That will actually make you look extremely bad, and we will not do that, and we don't advise you to do that. And it's even not in their jurisdiction. And if an officer, a U.S. customs officer, say, just give us a couple $100 and we'll get give you your documents back, that is really sus. But what's annoying is that customs have these waiver applications that it is actually paying a fee where they give you your green card back. And so that makes it look sus. But never mind, that's a different story for another day, right? If they confiscate your documents or your things, they are not looking for bribery. They're not looking for money, and don't even offer that, because that is an attempt to bribe a U.S. officer. Hopefully this story helps. It happens. Again, there's ways to get it back. And if it's very sensitive, that's the steps. Contact the CBP officer, get in touch with the HSI officer, and then meet with them to get the documents back. Thank you. See you guys next week, Thursday, 12 o'clock. Take care. Bye-bye.